Russia has tripled the production of ballistic missiles for the Iskander-M systems. All of this is thanks to China. According to Ukrainian intelligence, in December 2025, Russia was producing about 50 high-speed targets, and its stockpile was estimated at 200 units. According to analysts at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the Celestial Empire has become Moscow's key ally. It also helped restore Russian military production. After the introduction of Western sanctions, Beijing supplies Russia not only with dual-use goods, but also with items such as chips, machine tools, radars, drone airframes, lithium batteries, and fiber optic cables. The Russians use them to manufacture drones. Ihor Romanenko is joining the broadcast, founder of the charitable foundation for Crimea, the Sky of Ukraine, and retired Lieutenant General. Mr. Ihor, greetings to you. Good afternoon. That is quite good.
Good afternoon, our voters.
Please tell us, what is the potential threat from now on? Is it increasing? Will Russia be able to further expand and scale up the production of Iskanders? Because they are identifying these critical gaps and are now looking for opportunities, whether it's China or other countries that could supply the equipment. In your professional opinion, how many of these Iskanders could there be, and which specific region will face the most significant danger?
They are currently trying to undertake a great deal of effort in this regard to improve their overall situation for themselves. But we also need to assess things objectively. And what exactly do I mean by that? Throughout the course of the last 1,000 massive aerial strikes, the Russians, due to a very significant and increasingly critical shortage, and I really want to emphasize this, in their missile arsenal used for airstrikes, are already employing older training versions of the Zenit missiles. These are converted into surface-to-surface missiles, such as the S-300 and S-400 systems, first of all. In addition, they are using heavy naval missiles meant for aircraft carriers, which our military forces do not even possess. And again, they are being used in tactical ways that are not at all typical for them. Surface-to-surface strikes, they are inaccurate and also ineffective. But now, when the analysis was being done, we brought in our specialists. We examined the debris, assessed the Kh-101 missile from their strategic bombers, and saw that although only 2 weeks of January had passed, they were already using missiles produced in 2026. So all of this indicates that they are running short. Moreover, the overall trend, for example, regarding what you mentioned about components. Well, as for the air defense system, in which I have over half a century of experience, yes, the Russian air defense system also has shortages, specifically when it comes to anti-aircraft missiles. That's the first point. Secondly, regarding radar stations, which we are knocking out, we have repeatedly discussed on air how we struck such targets, for example, in temporarily occupied Crimea, clearing corridors, moving in, so they already have. Although both the anti-aircraft complex and the radar stations are produced domestically. And the third significant point to consider is that they face a specific and critical shortage of the essential foreign-made equipment and technical devices that they use in their various types and models of weaponry and military hardware, including missile and aviation systems. So where do they use them? In control systems, navigation systems, communications, and so on. They simply do not have enough. They engage in smuggling operations. They secretly work with the Chinese, with anyone they possibly can, but it is still not enough. And this trend, it is a trend of this year in particular, because various negative phenomena have been appearing in their economy and finances since the end of last year, meaning more generally as well. But despite this, they are gathering their final remaining resources in order to put relentless pressure on Ukraine, on its leadership, and on our resilient people throughout the nation. They are using every single asset at their disposal to keep pushing with blackouts and everything else they can find. And this is the current difficult state of this ongoing struggle.
Information that emergency power outages have been introduced in Kyiv and several regions was reported by the Oblenergo Dispatch Center. This information has just appeared. In particular, these emergency power outages are in effect in the Kyiv, Chernihiv, and Cherkasy regions. It has also become known about emergency outages in the Zhytomyr region. For now, that's the information we have. As soon as we get updates, of course, we will inform our viewers. Let me remind you, Kyiv, Chernihiv, Cherkasy, and Zhytomyr regions, these are the areas affected. At the moment, the information concerns the introduction of emergency power outages. Mr. Ihor, we understand that all of this is happening primarily because the Russians are shelling our energy sector, our infrastructure, our thermal power plants, but also the shelling of those facilities that are relatively in the rear. How much does this depend on whether Russia is having success or not on the front lines?
From observing the most recent developments, we can clearly see that for the past couple of months, they have been focused on striking precisely the vital energy infrastructure facilities of our system. However, due to the fact that the appropriate work was organized and for the first time during the entire war, at this stage of large-scale conflict, delegations from Ukraine and the Russian Federation met directly, sometimes with the participation of the Americans and sometimes without. So in those discussions, you still ended up returning to the issues that were there at the very beginning. The negotiation process, I would like to point out that at the very beginning, Ukraine immediately proposed moving from simpler to more complex issues, starting with stopping hostilities in the air and at sea. The Americans were proposing everything everywhere, and as a result, nothing was achieved anywhere up to that point. And during that specific period of time, the Russians put forward a formal proposal, for example, to completely cease and desist not all air operations, but only in certain sectors. Specifically, those related to energy infrastructure and power generation. Why? Because for them, this is very painful. All the more so now, given the current situation. Why have they returned to this negotiation process again? Because the seizure of the Russian fleet and the overall situation have been added to the mix. It has worsened, and that is precisely why they have arrived at these statistical figures. There is a clear corresponding trend. They postponed from the 1st to the 4th. These negotiations were delayed, but I think they are ongoing. And this is the first question regarding the fact that despite all the ultimatum-like approaches, the objective circumstances, the conduct of the war, and the current state of affairs, at the present time, these factors are forcing them to reach an agreement on this at the very beginning, that is a truce in the airspace and in the energy sector. Well, after that, they deliberated over a very extensive range of issues on which to pause and specifically what to agree upon. I think that starting from the 4th, there will be next steps.
Thank you very much. Ihor Romanenko, retired Lieutenant General and founder of the charitable foundation for Crimea, the Sky of Ukraine, was live with us.